Welcome to the Lisa Show and our book club. We are reading More Than a Body. We are on part 1 of chapter 4. And if you're listening to this podcast, first of all, thank you so much. And second of all, you could be watching us right here on YouTube. Because this is where we live, right? This is where we go for this. It's our home, right? And when I say us, I mean my esteemed guest, Whitney. Whitney, introduce yourself a little bit.
Yes, I'm Whitney Call. I am a writer, comedian, and woman.
And a woman.
And a woman.
Yes. And a reader, and you love this book.
I love this book.
Yeah. And we've talked a lot about it. And so I'd love to dive down really into the details of chapter 4, if you're okay with it.
Let's get to it, girl.
Okay. So this I thought was so interesting because here we are set up in the book, right? Mm-hmm. We've gotten the introduction of basically what the situation is.
The fire.
Right. And we've gotten into why things are the way they are. And what I really do appreciate about Lindsay and Lexie is that they include their research in the book in a way that is very conversational, but does have specific data.
Backing of
it. And so chapter 4 is From Divided to United as Women. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I know that you feel passionately about uniting women together. And this is where I feel like I don't know, maybe my activism starts to get going of like, oh no, we don't have to take all of this. We can change and make things better for everyone.
Yes.
And right off the bat, as soon as we start, it has us ask ourselves a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you the first question, which is, have you ever passed judgment on someone because of how they looked or dressed?
Yes.
Have you ever found out those judgments were wrong?
Yes, absolutely. Who hasn't?
I know. It's hard to admit, though.
It is, but I have admitted this to myself, I think, a lot, especially just doing more work on myself. I'm an Enneagram 1, if you know Enneagrams. So I already know that I'm very critical of myself, of other people. But yes, I think just recognizing anytime there's been I don't look like that person, or, look how much they put into themselves, or I know it's so much of my own projections, but I think because I'm aware now of how much I'm projecting my own pain, insecurities, frustrations of the day, even just on the outside, I think it's then easier to start pinging myself a little bit more of I just thought that about this person. They did nothing to me. They did nothing wrong, but I am having a bunch of feelings about them right now. So yes, 100%. It happens many times a day, I would say.
And it's one thing to be able to notice, okay, I do that, and I don't want to do it. And I think it's another thing to say, oh, we're all sort of doing that, because then it brings to attention, at least for me, of, I don't know what sort of messages I'm subliminally handling or handing out.
That's their job.
You're right. And in turn, what I'm absorbing from where I'm at. Sometimes I think that it gets in the way of us really connecting with each other.
Totally.
And so I think it goes deeper than just, I don't want to be a judgy person. I think it even goes deeper to say, wait, what else are you missing?
Yes.
If you're so fixated on this, then are you really connecting with somebody for deep friendship and sharing of ideas and just enjoying life a little bit more?
Yeah.
To me, I think that's so much more dangerous.
It's a grief, isn't it? I feel like this whole book gave me a big grieving process, because there was this feeling of, how many people have I not connected with because I thought, because they look like this, I can never be this. Ooh. Or, because they, maybe treat me like this, I can never be this with them. Or, just how much have I been missing out on because I'm seeing someone else as a body, not just myself. Yeah. I think that's where it comes from, that I have seen myself as just a body, but then I project that onto other people and I say, oh, well, when they are just a body, I don't want to associate with that. I'm not in a place where I can handle that, right? Mm-hmm. I've probably missed out on so many really awesome people who have stories and advice and things to share with me and connections. And I've just been in my own little hole that this devil of a society has kind of created for me. And yeah, it's a grieving process, right? But I think there is strength in just saying look, we're all doing it. So why
Yeah.
don't we all call it out and let's all try and move forward?
Well, because the next question is, well, have you been judged by somebody
Yeah.
that you felt harshly? And I just think that's so interesting in this entire series that we've done on the Lisa Show for body image. I've talked to so many people, and there is no like, oh, if you look like this or you're this age or that age, then you'll deal with this list.
Right.
It's everyone, no matter what.
Right. Right.
Which is not comforting that we all deal with it in different
Yeah.
ways. So when we look at someone, it made me realize that, oh, then she probably never worries about this. She probably,
Sure.
it's only a problem for me and not for her or whatever.
Oh, totally.
There's no way that's true. You can't
No.
judge from the outside. And also, again, like I feel like they say, right in the beginning, I just want to quote on page 165, we feel defined by how we appear. And so we define everyone else, friend or foe, by how they appear, positively or negatively.
Oh, totally.
Like, all of the ways.
Exactly. Even like people that I am closest to, people that are dear friends, I feel like sometimes it does. And I'm sure you would get this, Lisa, as someone who is in a job where my appearance is used.
Yeah.
I think it has kind of become a weapon a little bit sometimes when, especially in comedy, like there's not as many females in comedy, period. And so I've worked with a handful of female comedians for a very long time. And we get jobs all the time. And so many times I tell myself like, oh, like they got that job because they look better. They got that job because they wanted this body type. And sometimes like that just is the truth. Sometimes,
which makes it tricky.
Which makes it tricky, right? Is that sometimes people are just genuinely wanting a certain body type that I don't share. But then when I turn it on that person, when I make it about them, that's when it really starts to get ugly. That's when it really starts to, I think, do damage, like really lasting damage to myself and to these friendships of people who, like, these are my sisters. Like, these are our, this is my family, right? And so for this to be able to be infiltrated about the people I'm closest to even is just a sign of how insidious it is.
Yeah. Friend or foe.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, so everyone.
Yeah.
Cool. And but Lindsay and Lexie in their book, More Than a Body, talk about how, self-compassion and also compassion for everyone else. And I want to talk a little bit about that because I love how they write in a way that is, here's the problem and here's the situation and here's what we need more of. Like there is an offered solution. Girls and women are often stereotyped as inherently catty, competitive, and vicious towards each other. And I thought sometimes we just sort of set up that expectation for each other that like we are in competition. But who gains from us being in competition for each other?
It's all a system of oppression if you're thinking that way.
Yeah. Men, on the other hand, did not discriminate against men they deemed more attractive. And I just want to share this statistic on the bottom of 167. 63% of girls and 58% of boys experience some form of bullying due to their weight and size. So that's most of us. And I think that sometimes it can be overt and sometimes it can be really subtle.
Yeah.
And so it made me think about times in my life where I feel like, oh, I was treated differently based on, a size or my appearance, and it doesn't feel great.
It doesn't, and everyone can relate. So if we all are feeling this, then I feel like it should be easy for us all to kind of throw off the blindfold and say like who cares? Like let's all
collectively not care.
Don't listen to it. But we do, right? Because I think we're also our own worst enemy. We're reinforcing it with each other, which is kind of the grief part, right?
Right. And in the book, they talked a lot about like how girls talk about their bodies. They mirror how they see their moms do that. And I do feel like our generation, well, I shouldn't put us in the same generation. We're the same generation.
We can be sisters.
Generation X, I feel like we got that message. I think we were kind of the first one, like, oh yeah, we got to stop complaining about our bodies, especially in front of our daughters.
Yeah.
But I don't think that goes far enough.
No.
Because we're still doing things to change our appearance or to,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and kids aren't stupid.
No,
So
they're not.
even if you're not standing in front of a mirror saying, "Oh, I look like an elephant," like your kid will still pick up on the fact that you are, talking on the phone to your friend about how much you want to lose weight before
Yeah.
summer, or
Mm-hmm.
how you keep looking at yourself in the mirror because your clothes don't fit and you're trying to like hide this love handle. Like your kids will pick up on those things. So even if you're not outrightly saying something, it's being passed on still.
So I want to know what you do, because you have boys, and how you talk about your body, or how you talk about bodies with them in a way that like does what there is suggested here in this
Yeah.
chapter.
I think this is probably a great gift I was given, that I have boys, and so my mindset is already probably closer to where it should be, because all through this book I just kept thinking over and over and over, would a man say that about another man? Would,
Interesting.
like what you were saying here on page 166, where they were talking about how, girls are often inherently catty, but boys will not. They won't necessarily feel threatened by someone who looks more stereotypically attractive. And so I think automatically I just assume my boys aren't going to fall into that. And so I'm already talking about bodies as function instead of as form. And I had brought this up with you the other day, but like we were doing a workout video at our house, and one of the workout instructors was saying, it's really good to exercise those obliques because it gives you a tiny waist. And I like specifically pointed it out to them. I was like, why does she care how small her waist is? And one of my boys, and granted, they're all young still, right? So they're just silly too. But they were like, I want a big waist. And I was like, yeah, you do. But I think about it in terms of like, when men greet each other, they don't say like, you look so good, you look so handsome. Like that's not where they're even picturing the value would be, felt. Like why would your guy, like if I were a guy and I saw my guy friend, why would I think, oh, I know what'll help him feel better today?
Yeah.
Like, man, like your skin is glowing. Like he'd be like,
I can barely see your pores.
right? Like I just think like
Thanks, bro.
it's not even on their radar because they're like, what are you doing? How are you, like, how is life? What all the more important things, right? So I feel like I'm already maybe trained to talk that way with my boys. I'm
Interesting.
now trying to retrain myself to talk that way with every female, because I am still in that place of like, oh, this person looks like they're having a down day. I should, tell them how cute they look, or tell them,
Well, and that's exactly what they were talking about, how too often, and this is from 173, the compliments we receive about our bodies revolve around the ways women have been taught to exist in our world by taking up as little space as possible, right? And so it sort of reinforces the lies that thinner is best, healthiest, it's worth any cost, illness, trauma, depression, whatever.
Yep.
One woman said, when I was young, everyone called me skinny mini and praised me for being so tall and slender. And so I felt like I had to maintain that. And that's the thing that I feel so much now. The older that I get, it's like the compliments are of like how you used to look and then having to maintain that.
Yes.
Whether it's an age or a weight or a style or anything, it's just like being frozen in time and not allowing women to sort of change and grow without sort of like, stars, what do they look like now?
For sure.
You know what I mean? It's
For
like,
sure.
well, they're aging and they're older like the rest of us. I don't know.
Right?
Leave them alone.
Lisa, I like there's
You got
maybe
some
this
notes?
is on the second half. No, this is in the second half. I can talk about it later. But it is what you're talking about with the positive comments, right? Where they say on page 195, just like, you've never looked better. And but what we know is that research shows the vast majority of us will gain most or all of the weight back again within a few short years or less. And when those compliments stop, it's so easy to let body shame sink in that tells us we're valuable and attractive and worthy only when we're thinner and take up less space. I think the fact that we feel more valuable when we take up less space is maybe also why we feel threatened by each other, right? Is that I think we think that there's a shortage of space.
Yeah.
We think that space is finite. And so if we have one friend that's really loud and it's like, well, and when I hang out with her, I have to be quieter. It's like, that is a lie I am telling myself because I think that they are taking up space that I now can't have. I think Jamie Lee Curtis right now, if you follow her on Instagram, I love JLC. She talked, she did that whole like hype hype woman for Michelle Yeoh, because
Yes.
Michelle Yeoh had just won her first Golden Globe. She's been in the business for forever. And you see this picture of Jamie Lee Curtis being so excited for Michelle Yeoh because she's like, women are getting recognized now, and that's so awesome. And then Jamie Lee Curtis started receiving flack because people were like, okay, well, we're taking the thunder from Michelle now because we're focusing on how Jamie Lee Curtis made, and it's just another way that she's stealing this light, stealing this thunder. And Jamie Lee Curtis fired back on it and was like, this is the myth you're buying into.
Yeah.
That because I am so excited for Michelle Yeoh, now Michelle doesn't have enough space.
Yeah,
to
there's
be
only a
able-
limited
Right.
amount that we can be excited for women.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, let's all take up the
Yeah.
space we want to take up. And so I think when we give each other those compliments, we're saying, oh, good for you, you're taking up less space. But we are also reinforcing, like, if you freeze yourself right now, I'm really proud of you. And as someone with personal experience in the weight loss and weight gain journey, I don't know if you want me to save this for the second half.
No, keep going.
Okay.
We don't save anything. We get all the good stuff every time.
I just, as someone who's like, I went through most of my pregnancies on television. And so you could see like weight loss, weight gain, weight loss, weight gain. And then finally I had all my kids. I was done. I knew I wasn't going to get pregnant again. So I really wanted to lose weight. And I got a personal trainer. I spent $800 a month on personal training. I went 5 days a week and like just worked my butt off. I lost a lot of weight. I got really strong and I received so many compliments. And I felt so good about myself, and people actually treated me differently. So when people say it doesn't matter, it sucks, but that's the reality. People do treat you differently. But I also had this like paranoia following me around of like, what if it doesn't last? What if I don't keep it off? What if something happens? And like, spoiler alert, here I am now, like, 3 years after all of that transformation, and the pandemic happened. Life kind of spun out of control for me, and I'm just a person who has like a body that changes.
Right.
Newsflash, our bodies change. So I gained a lot of the weight back, and people stopped with like talking about my body because I think they were embarrassed, like, oh, I complimented her at one point about how thin she was, and now I feel like I can't say anything because she's not that size anymore. And so now I almost feel like I want to be louder about like, I've gained weight. That's okay. Like I'm also just like growing up, getting older, and a person who goes through life experiences where my body's going to change depending on what I'm going through. So I almost want to like look each person in the eye who I know. I remember who has complimented me.
That's so interesting.
Lisa, I
really,
remember.
you remember all the people who were like, oh my gosh.
Because I felt so like more valued by them that I just was like, oh, bookmark that. Like that person feels better about me now because I know that they see me. They see me now.
Well,
they
and
finally
this is
see
something
me.
that's different. Like when I was growing up, I would have never thought twice about giving someone a compliment around weight loss.
Sure.
And, to see it in print, 174, comments centered on weight loss can be hurtful. Now, as a grown-up, I'm like, oh, yeah, it can be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it can be. And another, when I was reading this, I was thinking about my journey as well, which is kind of similar to yours.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us can relate to that, especially when you've had a lot of children.
Your body is not yours for a while.
Well, and everybody reacts so differently.
Yeah.
And I've been so many sizes. Like I remember one time like going through my jeans in my closet and being like, I have like every woman's size of jean. I don't now because I'm trying not to be a hoarder and I'm trying to be more minimalist. Anyway, that's another show. But feeling confident and just being able to have clothes that fit is one thing. And then going out and showing up in the world and having people comment on how you look, not knowing if it's a good or a bad body image day for you, is a weird thing to walk around in society. And you can see why people get sort of social anxieties about it or like don't want to be around family members who constantly talk about it or because it's coming or whatever it is. There's so many different scenarios that I love that there is a place where it just brings it out and then sort of lays it out. And we've talked a lot about women, but something that I have noticed, and it has changed over the last, I would say like 5 or 10 years, is how many of my guy friends I feel will make disparaging comments about their body, like casually or as a joke or so, in a way that guys didn't do that
That's so interesting.
earlier.
Yeah.
So it's like the trend is becoming not better for women, but now just as bad for
Let's
men.
just drag everyone down.
And I don't like it. Like, but I have noticed that trend where men will talk poorly about their bodies.
Yeah.
As sort of in a preemptive way. Like, I know, and I'm,
And you know what?
Makes me uncomfortable.
I think it's maybe not that that it's just starting. I think it's always been there, probably.
Probably.
But now, hopefully, we're also just giving men as a general sex more emotional tools to be able to voice their own issues. Yes. So it's probably also just coming out more, right? And that's probably good. We just need more awareness that this is not a woman's problem. This is a people problem. This is a
human problem.
Yeah. And so to be conscious about anything you're saying about anybody's appearance. I love how, Lexie and Lindsay just say, like, just if it's appearance related, just skip it. Just, you don't need to focus on that. And I love that they also provide like ways you can answer back because I feel like this is maybe now the place we're at where, see, one of these women who had complimented me on losing weight, she herself went through this kind of weight loss journey and has gained a little bit of it back. And she was just telling me the other day how scared she is now of that pressure to stay this size that people noticed her in. And I sent her a portion of this book. Not in like this is, I have yet to ever say to her, I remember you complimenting me. But she has been through that exact thing now. So it just showed me, wow, it's so widespread. And to just share with her, like, look, when we're vulnerable with each other, when we're open to each other about the journey we're trying to make, I think that breaks down all the walls. Yeah. It doesn't have to come across as like, hey, like, don't do this. Yeah. But in more of a way of
focus. Like, we're not talking about that anymore. It doesn't need to, it can be kind. It can be inviting.
Share your
just to like
struggle.
Let yourself off the hook and let them off the hook for like feeling this constant pressure.
Let them off the hook. I love that way of just feeling it. Cause I think we can let everyone just let them off the hook and be like, actually, I'm going to like tear the veneer off of this right now and just say like, I'm really struggling with this. And then they could be like, maybe they'll say like, ew, but that's because they haven't come to terms with it yet. Or they'll be like, I'm struggling with it too. And then you're like, should we share?
Should we read this book together and have our own book
Should
club?
we unite?
I know. Should we? I think we should. I love it. Well, that is the end of part 1 of chapter 4 for Lisa's book club. More Than a Body is the book that we're reading. If you're listening, you can also watch this conversation on YouTube. We're having a very spirited conversation. You're not going to want to miss out on the facial expressions. I mean, I don't know.
I have no control over that.
And I hope you'll join us for part 2 of chapter 4 next time.